The Shield was one of the most dominant forces in WWE history, but despite their success, WWE as a company never truly embraced them the way fans did. From the moment they debuted in 2012, they were treated as a big deal, but the higher-ups never saw them as the ones to carry the company forward. WWE hated the Shield, not because they weren't talented, but because they weren't created in the exact way the company wanted. The biggest reason WWE resented the Shield was because they became bigger than what was originally intended. When they first appeared, they were just supposed to be a group of hired guns for CM Punk, a faction that would cause chaos but ultimately serve as a way to keep Punk as the WWE champion. They weren't supposed to outshine the main event stars. They weren't supposed to have the fans rally behind them the way they did. But from the second they stepped into the ring, it was clear they were something special. The chemistry they had was unmatched, and every time they wrestled, they tore the house down. It was November 18th, 2012. And it was just another cold Sunday night in Indiana. What started off as just another pay-per-view in the WWE ended with a moment that would go on to change the future of wrestling. Three men in all black popped off from the crowd during the main event, and before you knew it, Ryback was getting put through a table. Everything was destroyed, and these three men came up looking like the biggest savages in the company. The wrestling world was set into a frenzy. The Shield was born. 10 years ago, this was a group that was instantly beloved. You had three guys who looked like they didn't give a damn, casually wearing tactical vests, black gloves, and cargo pants. They would walk into the ring and do whatever the hell they wanted. What made it so cool was that most of us had no idea who the hell these idiots were. This was before NXT was aired on the WWE network, before everyone and their mom knew who the up-and-coming stars in developmental were. Back then, the majority of fans just watched Raw, sometimes SmackDown, and that was it. So when you suddenly turned on the program and saw these three taking over, it was a trip. Eventually, the Shield was just running in the WWE. By January, they were beating up The Rock. By February, they were beating John Cena on pay-per-view. As soon as the Shield made their debut, everyone knew that this was something special. Everyone knew that this wasn't just going to be another young group that tweaks for a little bit, then comes and goes and is forgotten. This was different. These were three guys that WWE actually believed in. These were three guys WWE saw as their future. This was WWE's attempt to make up for the lost generation. From 2006 until 2012, WWE struggled to create a new generation of legit main eventers. Even though, in the long run, some of them did work out. From 2006 to 2012, it literally looked like they forgot how to make legit main eventers. The future of WWE post John Cena looked so bleak, but then the Shield was in the cut, and it was a scary sight. Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and Dean Ambrose became the next generation. These were the faces of the future. They walked into WrestleMania 29 and they looked like they belonged. As the months went by, they just became better and better. Every time they went into the ring, they were going to put on a banger match, and the crowd was going to be invested. The most important thing was that during this time, so many kids who started watching wrestling in 2008 or 2009 were getting older. To them, these guys were the coolest thing ever. For a generation of wrestling fans, these were their guys, their anti-heroes, their savages, their favorites. For the younger demographic, they were all in on The Shield. For guys born in 2004, 2005, 2006, these were their homies. For people my age, we were teenagers entering high school. Of course, we loved this. And for older fans, they loved it just as much. They saw Seth Rollins as Tyler Black back in ROH, Dean Ambrose as Jon Moxley in CZW, just casually dying back in the day. They never would have thought that the people they watched wrestling on a 240p YouTube video in 2006, some random idiots wrestling in a backyard, would make it this far in WWE. But they did. It was literally the perfect storm. By the end of 2013, after US titles, tag titles, amazing matches and everything, the Shield had lived up to all the hype and expectations. They had been on the main roster for 14 months and did better than anyone would have ever imagined. As 2014 approached, speculation about the Shield breaking up also grew. After 14 months of dominating, people started wondering if it was time for them to split. They had won championships, beaten top stars. Maybe it was time for them to go their separate ways. But in 2014, they were about to reach even higher heights. This was the year that every single WWE fan, no matter the age, no matter where they were from, became a fan of the Shield. They were so elite that they made everyone into believers. In January, they dominated the Royal Rumble, with Roman Reigns getting cheered like he was Stone Cold Steve Austin. In February, the Shield versus the Wyatt family happened. One of the best six-man matches I've ever seen. Even though the Shield lost, they still looked like $1,000,000. By March, the Shield had turned face. They had been so badass as heels that fans had no choice but to love them. In April, they walked into WrestleMania 30 as faces, won their match in under 3 minutes, and stood tall as 75,000 fans went wild. Then came May, and the Shield got into their biggest feud yet, against Evolution. Triple H, Randy Orton, and Batista returned to take them on. At Extreme Rules 2014, the Shield put on a performance of a lifetime, defeating Evolution in a certified classic. 17 months into their run, they were on top of the world, hotter than ever, and WWE's biggest act after John Cena. Then came June 1st, at Payback, where they swept Evolution, eliminating them one by one. It was official. The Shield had arrived at the top, but the very next night, everything changed. June 2nd, 2014. It was a warm summer night in Indiana. Live from the Gainbridge Fieldhouse, the same arena where the Shield debuted 18 months ago. Raw went on like any other night, and in the main event, Randy Orton was set to face Roman Reigns. The Shield came out, and everything seemed normal. Roman Reigns even called Ambrose and Rollins his brothers. Then, Triple H came out with Randy Orton and a sledgehammer. Seth Rollins went outside the ring, grabbed some chairs, and handed them to his brothers. They were ready for war. But then Triple H said, "Last night was Plan A. Tonight is Plan B. There's always a Plan B." Then, out of nowhere, bam! Rollins swung the chair into Roman Reigns' back. The crowd screamed in shock. Dean Ambrose stood frozen, looking like he had seen a ghost. Rollins, looking like a stone-cold killer, went off, smashing his former brothers with the chair until it bent. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody wanted this. For once, there was a group that fans didn't want to see implode. Yet, just when the Shield was at their peak, when they were the hottest act in WWE, it all ended in an instant. It was one of the most shocking moments in WWE history. Twitter blew up. Facebook was going crazy. Even at school the next day, people were talking about it. Wrestling fans everywhere were in disbelief. For kids who grew up watching The Shield, who saw them as their guys, this was heartbreaking. For teenagers like me, it hurt. We had watched this group develop, dominate, and make us believe in them, only for it to end on a random Monday night. The craziest part? Roman, Dean, and Seth didn't even know the Shield was ending until they walked into that arena that night. What a moment. What a time to be alive. Let me know your memories of that night in the comments below. And since it's the 10th anniversary of the Shield's debut, share your favorite Shield moments too. Another reason WWE didn't like the Shield was that all 3 members weren't WWE's typical hand-picked superstars. Yes, Roman Reigns fit the mold of what Vince McMahon wanted, but Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins? They weren't guys WWE originally wanted to push to the top. Dean Ambrose came from the indie scene, working in violent, grimy promotions like CZW. He wasn't the clean-cut, cookie-cutter babyface WWE liked to push. He had an unpredictable energy to him, and Vince McMahon never saw him as a top guy. Seth Rollins, on the other hand, was a former Ring of Honor champion, a place WWE always tried to pretend didn't exist. He was labeled as difficult and developmental because he didn't want to conform to the WWE style. He was passionate, but he didn't kiss up to the higher-ups like other prospects. WWE hated that the Shield got over in a way that wasn't forced. They weren't given over-the-top gimmicks, and they weren't shoved down the fans' throats. They were just 3 guys who dressed in black, came through the crowd, and beat people up. That wasn't supposed to be the formula for success in WWE's mind. The company had spent years overproducing characters, scripting promos, and trying to control how fans reacted. But the Shield broke that mold. Fans connected with them because they felt real. And that was something WWE struggled to understand. The Shield also proved that WWE was failing at making new stars before they arrived. From 2006 to 2012, WWE struggled to create top-tier talent outside of John Cena. The company had spent years relying on part-time legends like The Rock, Brock Lesnar, and The Undertaker, and when it came time to build the next generation, they had no one. But the Shield changed that. In just a few months, they were main-eventing shows and holding championships, proving that WWE did have talent. They just weren't being given the right opportunities. WWE hated that the Shield exposed their own failures. Another issue was that they didn't fall into the typical WWE hierarchy. In WWE, there's always been a system where younger talent has to pay their dues and slowly work their way up. But the Shield didn't do that in the traditional sense. They showed up and immediately took down the biggest names in the company. They weren't slowly built up over the course of a few years. They came in and went straight to the top. They were booked to look strong, but the problem was, the more success they had, the more resentment there was behind the scenes. There was also the issue of how much the Shield overshadowed other stars. WWE had a plan to push certain wrestlers in 2013 and 2014, but the Shield's momentum kept getting in the way. WWE wanted to make guys like Sheamus, Alberto Del Rio, and even The Miz into top-tier stars, but every time the Shield had a match, they stole the show. No matter who they were facing, they made themselves the main attraction. WWE hated that they weren't the ones dictating who was popular. One of the biggest signs that WWE didn't truly love the Shield was how quickly they broke them up. Most dominant factions in WWE history lasted for years. DX had multiple runs. Evolution was around for a long time. The New Day stayed together for years. But the Shield? They were together for only 18 months before WWE decided to pull the plug. And they didn't break up naturally. They were split up right when they were at their hottest. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I loved making it because this was also a special time for me as a wrestling fan. Alright guys, I'll see you soon with more content. Take it easy and stay tuned. Later.